Asta's new anti-magic power is so broken that it can defy the laws of magic itself. It's so controversial that tons of people are debating if this should even be allowed or not. After an entire time skip of 1 year and 3 months after the Spade Kingdom arc, Asta was recognized for her strength and promoted to Senior Magic Knight First Class. This was obviously a snub. He should have been way higher considering he was so vital in taking down Devil King Lucifero. And even before then, he saved the whole kingdom from an ancient demon like the first Wizard King had done long ago. Point is, Asta was pretty damn strong already. But then, Lucius Socrates pulled up and humbled him. But honestly, Lucius did not play fair at all. For as powerful as he may be, he took advantage of Asta's desire to save people and exploited his feelings for Sister Lily by turning her into a paladin. After he was teleported to the land of the rising sun, Asta experienced his last training arc of the series. Now, as it turns out, the native technique of Hino country, Zaten, is exactly what Asta will need to take down Lucius. The evil Wizard King is too physically strong and has way too much magic power for Asta to beat him in a long fight. Zaten would allow him to get the job done in a short amount of time. It was explained to Asta that Ki is a flow of vitality and energy that everyone subconsciously uses to output their mana or Yoryoku. But things become much more interesting when Ki is used deliberately and precisely. After channeling one's mana, all they need to do is release it at once. It's a pretty incredible power since, in theory, any mage can learn it. But that's the thing. It's an incredibly difficult technique to master, even for incredibly skilled mages. One that usually takes several years of training. Really, only the members of Ryusen 7, the Shogun's elite warriors, could manage to do such a thing. Asta immediately saw all the possibilities that such a technique would provide when combined with anti-magic. He never thought of using Ki like this at all. It was sort of like an extension of what everyone else did with their Ki to create mana skin. But instead of being for the sake of protection, this was all about offensive power. And thanks to his contract with Libe, Asta could actually do something with this. Instead of channeling mana, he'd be using the power of anti-magic. And on his first attempt, Asta's anti-magic ate straight through a stalk of bamboo that had been grown with mana. His key training with Yami was paying off big time. He had a great foundation, and all that was left for him was to gain more experience. It didn't take very long for Asta to pretty much get the basics down. In the beginning, he needed partial Devil Union mode just to keep up with Ichika and the explosive force of her Zaten. Now he can take down one of the strongest nobles in the Clover Kingdom, who had been supercharged by Lucius's magic and the purified Supreme Devil Ball in his base form. Asta also got a chance to fight the other members of the Ryusen 7, although most of that was done off-screen. One major thing Asta discovered was the fact that different people have different ways of using Zaten. This mostly came down to how much they divided their power output across attacks. Asta still had a ways to go before he'd be a master of the technique. He finally figured it out while training against Yosuga. Asta had successfully developed his anti-magic Zaten, and according to Ryusen 7's strongest member, it is the strongest counter. After mastering the technique, Asta continued to train with Ryusen 7 until it was time for his departure. During that time, while he trained with Ichika, Ryuya brought up the fact that Asta's anti-magic can be applied to objects. This was something he had done plenty of times with his various swords. Ryuya simply wondered if it would be possible for Asta to imbue people with anti-magic too. This would pretty much be the reverse of what he had done with the Demon Dweller early on in the series. While they were fighting Mars in the dungeon, Asta somehow charged his sword with Noel's mana and released a water magic attack. Ryuya explained that Asta's gotten so good at harnessing his anti-magic thanks to his Zaten training. So now, there was a good chance that he would be able to pull this concept off. Ultimately, anti-magic and anti-magic power are big unknowns, so it's worth a try at least. And that's kind of the problem. We really don't know enough about anti-magic to know exactly what's possible and what's not. Which is why what comes next is so controversial. After lifting his Demon Dweller sword in the air, Asta shared his own anti-magic power with 12 other people. Apparently, his affinity and time spent with the Black Bulls made this possible. So now, everyone is supercharged with anti-magic power. But how? Anti-magic usually just deletes any mana or magic it's applied to. And clearly, based on how their anti-magic manifests itself, it is connected to their respective magical abilities. How is this possible? How can magic and anti-magic possibly coexist? Well, I might have an idea. Before we heard about Ryuya's story, the Witch Queen asked Asta a question. She wondered if Asta will have some trick up his sleeve for when the Black Bulls recovered. Well, why would she ask him this? It's not like the Black Bulls are trash. Sure, they're not as strong as Asta, but he's kind of playing with cheat codes at this point. The only reason they struggled against Kira so much was because of how overpowered scale magic is. And even then, they were still putting in work against those guardian angels. And evil Wizard King clones aside, they would be more than strong enough to make a noticeable difference in the Clover Kingdom fight too. So it really wouldn't make sense for the Witch Queen to doubt their strength at this point. And Asta definitely wouldn't do that. Well, the truth lies in her form of healing. According to Noelle, the spell the Witch Queen uses to heal, Curse-Breaking Blood Cocoon, is an advanced high-level spell. Noelle compared the Witch Queen's magic at the time with salamanders. Yeah, one of the elemental spirits that possesses the same power potential as Sylph, but in fire form. And we all know how broken she has made Yuno. And after comparing them, she said the Witch Queen's magic was even more terrifying than that. But here's the thing, that was only when she created one of these blood cocoons. Now, she's healing dozens at the same time. It's why she wanted to pass on the title of Witch Queen to Vanessa. It's going to take everything she has to heal everyone in the forest. And she's using blood magic at that. Based on what she said about infusing her own blood in Asta when she healed him in the past, this is her blood she's healing him with. She's only got so much in the tank, which is to say that it is very unlikely that this healing will do anything for the Black Bulls in the mana department. They'd be physically good as new, but they spent a lot of mana in their fight against the Paladin. There is no way the Witch Queen would be able to completely regenerate their mana. Imagine the Witch Queen as a shopkeeper. She has infinite health potions, but is all out of mana potions. Not to mention, there are a good number of nobles in the Black Bulls. The amount of mana they would need to be able to perform at their best would be ridiculous. So the only way for the Black Bulls to still be able to fight even with their low mana would be for them to use another power source entirely. And that alternate power source is anti-magic, because anti-magic is its own form of energy. What the Black Bulls may have done from there was to manipulate this new form of energy exactly as they would otherwise use their own mana. So they're technically not using magic at all here. They're just manipulating it in their own unique ways. And they're able to wield this power without dying because anti-magic is not the same as the condition Asta's mother had. She unwillingly drained the mana and life force from all living things except devils. Anti-magic has never once depleted a person's natural life force. And based on how the Witch Queen described it, anti-magic energy is always flowing through Asta's Demon Slayer sword. But he's the only one who should be able to wield it because he doesn't have mana. But it's not as if being out of mana kills a person. I mean, Asta's doing pretty well without it. But even then, if we equate anti-magic to magic and anti-magic power to mana, Asta is an absolute god. This is definitely comparable to what Yuno is able to do with his Never Neverland spell. That one let him boost the magical power of allies and weaken the magical power of enemies. That was like a widespread buff and nerf at the same time. What Asta's done is simultaneously adapt and provide an equivalent source of power to 12 very different people, 3/4 of which I'd say have at least above average mana pools. This man Asta pretty much learned the ultimate technique of a foreign land in a week and has now created his own version of Lucius's whole paladin thing on his first try. And with a dozen of them, he has more than these guys and Lucius has paladins already. But what can they really do? Well, a lot. The possibilities are truly mind-boggling. Luck, for example, seems to have access to anti-magic lightning, which has the potential to be crazy broken. I mean, think about it, Luck is already one of the fastest characters in this series. But with anti-magic, he'll be able to pull off something similar to Asta's Black Meteorite move. It allows him to cut straight through any magic-based attack and emerge unscathed. So this madman can charge straight into things even more now. Luck can use his Thunderclap Crumbling Orb spell to create anti-magic projectiles, and I would love to see him mix anti-magic with his Lightning Battle Fiend form. He didn't get a chance to use it much in the fight to protect the forest on account of scale magic. Anti-magic Magna could make use of anti-magic projectiles too. But the thing about fire is that it spreads. Black flames will always be cool in anime and manga, so this is really exciting. But if he combines anti-magic with his Soul Chain Deathmatch, he's kind of invincible. Soul Chain Deathmatch makes it so that he and the person he's tethered to go 50-50 in the mana department. But if he shares anti-magic power with an opponent's mana, that mana will be destroyed, and all that would be left would be anti-magic. But the thing is, to use anti-magic like this, a person needs to be compatible with and familiar enough with Asta. So, Magna could cheat the system by completely depleting a person's magic while maintaining his own power. Now, Charmy's anti-magic power potential might be a downgrade depending on how you look at it. With Glutton's Banquet, Charmy can have her wolf devour the spells of others and convert them into energy for herself. With anti-magic, she may only be able to devour and destroy spells instead of gaining energy from them. Her Sheep Cook spell is the real oddball though. Normally, the food it creates are able to restore magic power. But obviously, it wouldn't make much sense for anti-magic to be able to do this. But what if the food gives anti-magic power instead? Now that's where things get really wacky. A black sheep and a black wolf sound pretty cool, but it's hard to know for sure if anti-magic power is a good thing for Charmy or not. From there, the possibilities are endless for Gray's transmutation magic. It's really just make anything the spell. Pretty crazy. Gauche's mirror magic was already able to duplicate Asta's anti-magic attacks. This might just be the workaround for Asta not being able to share anti-magic power with just anyone. Gauche may be able to use his mirrors as a sort of magic to anti-magic converter. Honestly, anti-magic is such a potent thing that any anti-magic attack at all is a cause for concern. Even if many of the defending Magic Knights aren't powerhouses, simply having their spells be anti-magic attacks instead would change everything. Zora's traps being anti-magic seems pretty cool. Probably not the most exciting out of the bunch, but this could definitely be the cause of an epic moment or two. I'm not really sure what anti-magic would be able to do for Finral specifically, but even still, he seems to be absolutely brimming with its power. Noct did not receive much of a visual change compared to the others, but being able to access anti-magic power is crazy in his hands. The defensive potential of his Equus form goes up like tenfold. He could stand a lot more thanks to being able to negate magic power as it comes into contact with his defenses. With Cadmus, he could create an anti-magic army of his own, one that won't go away until he himself is taken down. Felis would let him be similar to Luck with the whole black meteorite thing. The key difference being that Luck fights very boldly, while in this form, Noct is a lot more stealthy. Gallus gives him access to paralyzing sound waves that are strong enough to even affect high-ranking devils. Anti-magic sounds would be insane. From there, Noct also has his Fusion Unite modes. So yeah, plenty of cool things to come from this combination. Henry is going to be very interesting. I wonder if the anti-magic will satisfy his body enough for him to stop draining mana from everyone around him. The Raging Bull was torn apart just a little while before, so I'm not sure what he would use his recombination magic on exactly. Gordon might be able to create anti-magic poison. Nothing too crazy in terms of the attacks themselves, but we can assume that if any of the attacks hit, they will have a lasting effect on the person's mana, even when they are no longer in direct contact. Narrow Sealing magic can pretty much become Control-Alt-Delete. The moment she seals something with anti-magic, all magical properties from said thing will be totally removed. Any lingering magical effects at all could be removed from play. And then there's Vanessa. Anti-magic has very clearly changed the color of her threads. No longer is Rouge made out of the red threads of fate. The cat is now totally black. And considering Vanessa's whole witch thing, it seems like this may have been a long-time intention of Tabata's. This is a power that can alter fate itself. Combine that with anti-magic, and it might be able to defy anything magical or turn any magical event in favor of Vanessa or anyone she cares about. Considering how much Lucius already does not like this timeline because of Asta, I wonder how he would feel about anti-magic altering fate even more. Ishika is another character we can assume Asta is able to do this with on account of how their connection has been discussed. Ishika is pretty straightforward in regards to her magic. She turns herself into a dark samurai and does a lot of damage, but Asta has not given her his power just yet. If he did, she wouldn't have her own mana to work with first. Asta already has plenty of strong friends, so why do we need Ichika with him? Well, besides her being able to reunite with her brother, Ichika is a very special fighter because she is the only one besides Asta that can use the 10. It has already been established to be vital in this final fight, and the power of an anti-magic to 10 was especially stressed, so her getting access to anti-magic will be huge. With that being said, Asta was able to master the technique thanks to what Captain Yami had already taught him about Ki. There's no reason to think that Yami won't be able to do the same thing when the time comes. And because Gray diagnosed his body to be closer to Libe's than a human's at this point, he might not even need Asta's anti-magic power at all. But one thing I wonder about are the limits of this. How much anti-magic power does Asta have to give? He's clearly given a lot. Is there a limit to how many people he can share it with? Or does it just come down to compatibility? I mean, he shared it with 12 people already. Whatever the case, the Black Bulls are definitely more powerful than ever before. When Asta found his resolve, he decided that he would be the strongest. And now together, clad in black, the Black Bulls are the strongest. Do you like this power-up? Did this explanation change your mind about it at all? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.